Hey everybody, just sitting here vibing off of the championship game. I know it was a ugly loss by the end, but looking back at this game, there were a lot of put it like this: they don't turn the ball over. They put themselves in a position. They had the key to unlock the door to being successful against the Eagles, and maybe they had a chance to win the game and go to the Super Bowl, but the turnovers really cost them. And but I think they'll be the better of it because of this game, and Dan Quinn will know how to approach the game the next time, and the players will have some experience, and it's a good thing for all around. And maybe they weren't quite ready for Showtime because it's possibly they would have got blasted by the Chiefs because their offense was pretty porous defensively as far as the passing game and the run game. So anyway, I applaud the Commanders for a successful season. They made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. Can you believe it? And the fact that the NFC East had both teams in the NFC Championship game, that makes me excited for the NFC East, because I think that if the Giants get somebody like a Cam Ward, I think that the Giants could be a formidable team as well. Not many people believe that Cam Ward could be such a difference maker, but I'm one of the guys that believe that Cam Ward can really help the Giants team to improve. And I think having him could put the NFC East in a position where they were back in the 80s and 90s, where they were almost taking turns being in the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. I mean, if you think about those teams during those years where Washington had three championships, you had the Giants had a championship, you had the Cowboys in the 90s win some championships. So you can certainly get back to that level if either of Dallas or the Giants become successful. And I think that having somebody like Cam Ward, and then you have, oh my goodness, I forget the wide receiver's name, Malik Neighbors. If you have somebody like Malik Neighbors and Cam Ward, and if they get some more skilled players, you got a good running back in New York. I think that the NFC East can be really good. They can have three teams in the playoff annually for a few years here if they can get that together. So I do applaud the Commanders, and I'm excited about their future. And I think they just need some pieces and they need some upgrade. They need some size, and they can certainly be competing for championships right along with the Eagles. And so that kind of had me thinking recently, should the Commanders approach personnel in such a way that they can compete with the Eagles, or should they just approach it as in getting the being becoming the best team that they can be? And I say the answer lies in the fact that the Eagles, this is the first year of a potential dynasty. It's not like they're a dynasty team where you have to build your team to actually target a specific team because they're a dynasty. No, you don't have to do that. It's not like the Eagles are the Chiefs and they have been winning championships regularly over the past several years, or it's not like the Eagles are the New England Patriots where you have to build a team to defeat them specifically. So there's an opportunity for the Commanders to overtake and jump over the Eagles. So I say become the best team you can be, collect as much talent as you can, and then you can jump over the Eagles and become that elite dominant team. So I say don't build your team to defeat the Eagles specifically, but build your team to be as talented as possible. Now, there are some considerations you need as you're building your team if you want to put your team in a position to overtake the Eagles. But you're not trying to build your team to stop the Eagles, to get on that level. You're trying to overtake the Eagles and become that big dog on the block. Because the Eagles, although they're the bully that just moved to the neighborhood, they're not the established bully on the block yet. So you can overtake the Eagles. Okay? Now, you can tell. Now, going back to the personnel thing and certain things you can do that you need to take in consideration for the Eagles, I think that the Commanders need to get more speed and to get more size. That way, you're dealing with a situation where you're picking on somebody. Well, the Eagles would be picking on somebody that's their own size, okay, or their own speed, so to speak. So you need speed, you need size, and they already have toughness. They already got skill. They already got good coaching. The Commanders I'm speaking of. They just need a little bit more size. They need a little bit more speed. They need more instinctive players. And that being said, I recently saw a list of all of the players, or most of the players, that the Commanders talk to at postseason college bowl games, such as the East West Shrine game, the Hula Bowl, and the Senior Bowl. And there was a list of all of the players they were looking at. And so I started researching the players a little bit, and I noticed one thing that jumped off on the page, and that was all of these players, like for instance, the defensive linemen that they interviewed at the Senior Bowl and the East West Shrine Bowl. These guys were big guys. They were bigger guys than they have now. And if you notice, one thing about the Commanders is they were a little bit smallish on the defensive front. I mean, yes, they had John Allen, and yes, they had Deron Payne, but they had guys like Newton and the other guy with the dreadlocks. His name escapes me, but he came in late. And so you need size, you need girth to stop the run. Not to say that you can't stop the run with quicker, smaller guys, but considering that the Eagles are a bigger offensive front, guys with size, you need to match their size. And that's what I'm talking about when I say that you do have to have some considerations of what the Eagles have when constructing your roster. I mean, you're not going to just totally ignore them because they're not a perennial bad boy on the block. You know, they're not the Chiefs. They're not the New England Patriots yet. But you still have to consider the fact that they have huge guys on their offensive linemen, and you don't want to get pushed around. And so, anyway, the list of players that they interviewed for these college all-star games, there were some huge players. They had the guy from Maryland, whose name escapes me, but he's sort of a bigger guy. They had a guy from Mississippi that was pretty huge. And I cannot remember. I have a list of these guys somewhere. But suffice to say, you can tell what they're going for. They're looking for bigger guys with some girth. I mean, these guys, there was one guy that was 6'6", 330 pounds, and who I really wish they would draft, and he's not even a first round pick. And so when they say that the defensive linemen are deep in this class, that is true. There are a lot of guys with some size and that can really stop the run and that are pretty good against the pass that will be available in the draft. And you can tell by who they interviewed what they're trying to do in this offseason. They're trying to get some more size and some more speed. Even the wide receivers they're looking for. There were several wide receivers that they were looking at that were 6'3" and 6'4". Some of them 6'3", 220. And there's one guy that they interviewed named Rock Taylor from Memphis, who I really like. He just looks like a pro. He looks like a bigger version of A.J. Brown. The same solid body, but he's probably 1 to 2 inches taller. And so you need a guy like that to complement Terry, and that would go a long way. And so it's interesting. A lot of those receivers were like 6'3", 6'4", like Pat Bryant from Illinois. He's like 6'3", 210. I think he can add some more weight, but he reminds me of Larry Fitzgerald in a lot of ways. His route running, and he just always seems to be open in college. They interviewed this guy. They interviewed other guys like Ty Felton from Maryland. Ty Felton is like 6'2", 6'3", and he seems to catch touchdowns all the time. On a weak Maryland team that was unsuccessful this year, he was a star that stood out. I mean, look at the running backs that they were looking at. Think about it. They have Austin Eckler. They have Brian Robinson. Both of them missed multiple games this year. And at times, Brian Robinson was a bit ineffective. Well, you can find Brian Robinson types that are his size or bigger, but faster and got some wiggle to them. You can find Austin Eckler types who are a little bit taller, have a little bit more weight to them, but they're as shifty as Austin Eckler. There are plenty of running backs. There are plenty of running backs in this year's draft as well. So I say that to say we already see who we kind of see. If you see this list and you research the players, you can see what the Commanders know what they have to get in order to go to the next level. You know, you have guys like Zacchaeus. You have guys the same size as Zacchaeus, but that are more shake and bake, that can make people miss, that can get past people. You got people like LaJohntay Wester from Colorado who can make players miss in a phone booth. So you can tell they interviewed LaJohntay Wester. They interviewed the other guy from Colorado, Will Shepard, who's like 6'2", 6'3", 210, 215. So you can tell what they're going for. They're going for size. They're going for quickness. So that's a good thing. So how would I approach this offseason as far as what they need in free agency and the draft? This is what I would do. What I would do is I would go heavy on the trenches in free agency. There are some guys you can get that are 26 years old, something like that you can get for like $15 million a year. There's the guy Osa from Dallas who has not missed a game in 2 years, and he is very effective at the run. Against the run and the pass. Imagine you have him, and imagine you have Milton Williams from the Eagles, who is a free agent. I think they have a couple defensive tackles or defensive linemen that are free agents on the Eagles. You can snag one of them, snag the Dallas guy, and if you can somehow get, excuse me, you can somehow get Myles Garrett, now you're cooking with fish grease for this defensive line. And for the offensive line, there are several young offensive linemen. You can get one offensive lineman, such as the guy from the Rams, Eric or Alaric. I forget his last name. I'll have to look it up. But he's available. He's 26. He's a offensive left tackle. Then you move Brandon Coleman on the inside, and then you have a formidable line. You have a better line. So, but again, to sort of put home the point, you go heavy in free agency on the trenches, and then you stock up on talent in the draft. There's so much talent at the skill position in the draft that you can do that. And I consider cornerback a skill position. I consider it separate from the trenches, and so you can also get some good cornerbacks there. Um, you can get the guy from East Carolina who's a great DB. You can get the guy from Florida State. So there are some options. You can load up on talent, and you need as much talent as you can in this league. And that's how I would approach it. I would load up on talent, collect all the talent I can in the draft, and then fortify my offensive and defensive line in the in free agency. So, what are your thoughts on that? How would you approach it? Would you load up on offensive linemen and defensive linemen in the draft? Because there are plenty of defensive linemen and offensive linemen in the draft. Let me know what you think.